Welcome to episode 73 of Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of Comicbook.com. I am your host, Kofi Outlaw, and with me today, my co-host, Matthew Aguilar.
What's up?
And straight from the cut of usually sitting behind this sign behind us, Mr. Chris Killian is back on the show.
Number 73.
Number 73, yeah.
Such a big number.
Yeah, it is. About 9 months, we've birthed an official baby here, which is a good time to plug that, in that time, our baby has had over 1 million downloads, and we want to thank you guys for riding with us on this Comic Book Nation journey, as strange as it sometimes may be, or as you heard in our last episode, as volatile as it can sometimes be.
I heard you guys got into a big old fight last episode. How'd that go?
I think reason prevailed in the end over some of the madness that was leaked out on this podcast. It was like fighting a breach of madness that's coming out.
I feel like this is going to be a much friendlier episode with me and Matt.
Well, I don't know. The Gemini Man could literally split people.
You think so?
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Spoiler alert.
It's not going to split us.
Spoiler alert. So, as you just heard, we are going to be doing a review of Will Smith and Ang Lee's new movie, Gemini Man. But in addition to that, we are going to be talking about we're going to be previewing Marvel's new X-Men reboot, but not the one in theaters that you might be hoping for, the one on the comic book page that is coming. House of X is now over. Powers of X is now over. Powers of 10, that's the last time I'm doing this. Powers of 10 is now over.
You don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah, I know. I'm just so happy about that.
Dawn
now
of 10.
over. And, Dawn of 10. Dawn of X, the Marvel relaunch of the X-Men world is coming. So we are going to be talking about that as we've been following this the whole way. And we're also going to get a little bit, opinionated, and we're going to talk about some of these recent comments about Marvel movies that have been kind of flying around Hollywood. But first things first, let's start with a happier topic, which is the trailer for Onward, Pixar's new movie that stars two big Marvel people, Chris Pratt, Tom Holland. We got a new trailer like seconds before we walked in here. And funny enough, I didn't see the first teaser, so this was my entire kind of introduction to what this concept is. I've kind of I made it no secret on here that I've fallen off of Pixar in the last few years. There's been a lot of sequels and stuff that I'm not as interested. I think what was it, Inside Out, or what is it? What was that?
Inside Out, yeah.
Yeah, that was about
the last one you saw.
That's like the last one I saw. Or
you
really
didn't see Toy Story 4 yet?
No, I don't like Toy Story.
He's not
Kofi doesn't.
I take it back. Maybe we will fight today.
He doesn't like any movies that's had sequels and stuff to it. So he doesn't like Incredibles.
No, Incredible sequel's okay.
You don't like any movies with sequels? What are you doing here?
Just Pixar. I liked Pixar's phase of really original, when they were just pushing really original tales each year. So that's all to say. I'm excited for Onward. I saw the trailer for Onward, and I'm really excited for Onward. It's a great concept. I like this modern fantasy world, and I like this weird Weekend at Bernie's thing. I didn't expect that. I had no idea that was thrown in here. So I'm loving this whole.
This trailer gave us a much better look at what we can expect from the movie. I think anybody with daddy issues are really gonna love this movie. That's how it came across to me.
I just think I'm looking forward to the twist.
Industry.
Basically everyone.
I feel like I'm looking forward to the twist, I guess, of that the dad, it's not really the dad, that something happens where it's somebody else that they thought, and there's got to be something else there to that. But it looked great. Chris Pratt was born to voice characters.
I don't think you could ask for a better, more likable tag team than Tom Holland and Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
It just comes.
Those two, since they've had fun, you could tell they have good real life chemistry, and they're just kind of bouncing off one another really well in this trailer. And I like the whole, this is what I love about Pixar. I like this whole concept of this, a fantasy world that has modernized and kind of moved on. And what that all looks like on a micro level as we get to travel and do this kind of journey movie is going to be, just that whole world building is going to be so much fun. And like I said, it's just kind of weird in the right way. It's kind of like what I wanted Matt Groening's Disenchanted to be more like.
Yeah.
This is what I feel like I would have liked more from that show, which isn't a bad show, but this is just kind of spot on for taking fantasy and remixing it into something really funny and reflective of modern times and stuff like that.
Or if Bright had been any good.
Yeah.
I'm really on Will Smith today. I'm sorry.
Man. Didn't you like Bright?
That was
Yeah, wait.
unintentional.
I thought you said something else. I thought you said
said
Bride. I thought you said Bride, and I was like thinking in my head. I was like trying to cycle through my head, like what movie called Bride? That was
But
my
you went
automatic.
with it. I appreciate you going with
Yeah,
it.
it was my automatic show answer. But like, no, Bright. Don't you badmouth Bright on this show. Don't you
Who
badmouth
knew
Bright
that we
on this
didn't
show.
even have to get to the second
Yeah, we
half
have
of the show?
grenades. Yeah, grenades
Good Lord.
everywhere. Yeah, Bright. There will be no besmirching Bright on this show.
I still haven't seen Bright, so.
Oh,
Fair,
you're
I
worse
also
than
liked
anybody.
Bright.
Yeah, thank you.
thought it was- I thought-
Again,
Why am I
we're
worse?
at the breach, just fighting
Why am I
against this
worse?
madness. No, I'm just kidding.
I have no
No,
opinion.
but if anybody messes with my Bright 2, I swear, I mean, we're gonna have problems because I want that Bright 2.
Man.
So Onward is looking good. I'm excited. Matt, I mean, I throw to you for
Yeah, I
you, the
mean,
Disney guy here.
We were watching it together, right? And like, it's hard not to smile through that. I do love the premise. I didn't see coming as far as like the dad and like bringing him back. We knew it was going to be a road trip movie. We didn't know why. So it's nice to have that context. I just love, like you said, I love when Pixar is allowed to just have fun and build a world that's unique, and getting to see all these fantasy creatures like the little dragon as the pet.
Yeah.
And like the spray bottle and like seeing the gnomes and mowing lawns and stuff. Like all that stuff is just really fun. And I feel like also if you're like a old school fantasy nerd or a tabletop nerd, you're gonna find so many fun little Easter eggs throughout this entire movie. Because I feel like there's just a ton in a 2-minute teaser anyway. So it's, I can't wait. It's gonna be.
I just feel like it's that sense of adventure. Like all the other like movies have that sense of adventure, but this one feels like an adventure movie.
Yeah.
In a way, and that what I think is probably what
I felt about Brave. I really like the second, especially the second half of Brave.
I liked Brave. I think Brave's underrated. I really liked Brave too.
So,
And plus the gags we get from the fact that they're hanging out with a pair of legs.
Yeah,
That's great fun.
Yeah, the whole thing, you like look the guy, like you looking at me shades, like the mini like demon guy, like just everything about that is what I'm saying. I love when Pixar can get a little weird with it, and this looks great. All right, moving on. Let's talk about what's going on in Hollyweird and Marvel movies. It feels like every so often. I mean, it is like the great prophet Biggie Smalls once told us, like more money, more problems. Like,
Yeah.
Marvel has had a great year for money, and now they got more problems. Martin Scorsese came out and had a statement about Marvel movies in particular. I got a little heat because I kind of like had to throw a "Okay, Grandpa" at Martin Scorsese.
I was just gonna say "old man yelling from tree," but I'm glad.
He's like, here's what he said about Marvel movies. I don't see them. I tried, but that's not cinema. Honestly, the closest I can think of them, as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks. It isn't the cinema of human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experiences to another human being. And listen, okay, so that was a starting point. Naturally, in today's, culture, like it's boom. That was a grenade Scorsese dumped on everybody. So I got a little heat last episode, but let me just be clear, and I'm not saying this to be pretentious, but like as somebody who actually went through the process of studying film, he was a big focus, a big idol. I've watched, virtually like all of his movies. I think he really is talking from the position of being one of the best cinematic storytellers of all time, from a technical level to just, the beyond technical level to just tell a good story, an entertaining story, and put it together on film. He's talking from a masterful position,
right?
But like
a self-important one.
Yeah.
But yes, a masterful position.
But yes, exactly, and that's the turn. But it's like a little self-important, just because this isn't your cup of tea. Cinema's a wide tent.
But also, I don't think it's fair, though, that he's getting so much slack for it, because it's not like he held a press conference to be like, this is how I feel about Marvel movies. Yeah. Somebody asked him a question, and he gave his opinion.
Yeah.
And I feel like the fact that we're just kind of like now just bombarding him with oh my gosh, how can you say that, Martin Scorsese? It's like, who expected the director of Goodfellas to like Marvel movies? Like, why is that a surprise?
He doesn't have to like them, but I get it. It's not like he went and did an expose and was like, here's how I feel.
If you don't have something nice to say, don't say
Martin
it at all.
Scorsese presents F Marvel movies.
And he answered it. So if you're going to answer it, be prepared for whatever answer you give to get crapped on if it's not great.
But at the same
I just don't, the thing about it is I just kind of rolled my eyes at the duplicitousness of just like I was like, if he had just said, yo, straight up Martin Scorsese, I'm Martin Scorsese, like I make like a different kind of thing I consider cinema and I don't consider this in the tent, okay. But like when he started going, you know, oh, but as well made as they are, and the actor's doing as best they can
that part
under
was
the
like
circumstances.
very condescending.
Like, that point I'm just like,
give me a break.
give me a break.
I've seen some of your movies that, you know, that don't hold up to that lofty bar.
Yeah, but even still, I still feel like we're getting very like just I don't know why everybody's getting so offended and up in arms about it. Just because Martin Scorsese doesn't like Marvel movies or had that opinion, it doesn't change the fact that we still get to watch Marvel movies and he doesn't have to watch.
Oh yeah,
them. I just don't think.
I mean,
it's a
I
big
think
deal.
ultimately that's why I'm also bringing it up is like that was my initial thing was like. In the last episode, I'd even like skip a beat. I was just like, "Okay, Grandpa, like that's your opinion."
Yeah, exactly.
and just make like I said in the last episode, you're entitled to your opinion.
And I'm not saying us.
You're not entitled to think it
is-
matters that much.
Is
Like,
that people like there are a lot of people in that industry, actors and directors or whatever, who look up to someone like Martin Scorsese, and it's one of those things where it's like if you idolized him and considered him your hero and find yourself working on superhero stuff, you automatically feel a sense of belittlement, and whether or not it's justified or whatever.
I don't want Paul Rudd crying in the shower now because he feels like he's blown his career. Like,
right,
yeah.
but at the same time, like those people also have to just realize that like it's just this dude's opinion, and like that Martin Scorsese is going to keep making the movies that he wants to make the way he wants to make them, and they're not going to stop making Marvel movies. So they'll exist. Yeah, the world moves on.
Yeah. I think it's a difference between being offended. I mean, if you're truly offended by this and you went on Twitter and railed and just were like started a petition and stuff, then yes, I obviously feel like you're taking that opinion too close to heart. But I get to comment if you opened your mouth and said it. If you didn't want to hear any feedback on it, then go write it in a journal. If you said it out loud, then I get to respond. Sorry. Yeah. Like it's the same people that are on Facebook and Twitter and go, well, how dare you comment on my timeline? Or how dare you comment on my post? I'm like, what did you think you wrote it on? You wrote it in a public forum. Suck it up.
Yeah. So
like, tough.
Yeah. And I also think, just for the record, like I kind of disagree with him. I think
I definitely disagree with it.
I think it's insulting. He's also insulting. He made it sound as if these movies are made through an assembly line of people. Yes. Like, as if he's not just taking a giant dump on a whole bunch of other filmmakers at the same time. I mean, early Marvel, you're talking about he's crapping on Kenneth Branagh or like other, like that's...
I mean, to say that it's not cinema is just ridiculous. I mean, because
and it's
they
just he's
air in
throwing
theaters.
shade. I mean, there is a note of just disrespect to people, and even just actors who are trying to work. Like Scorsese, you're not feeding all of Hollywood off The Irishman. You feed the same 5 people all the time, and like the rest of the industry has to still like make a living and that's kind of like I mean, like again, it's from a certain position in the ivory tower that I feel like you're forgetting what it's like to be on the ground. Like this man really was once upon a time, like on the ground, scrounging, doing what you had to do and scraping it together to be a filmmaker. Like,
but this stuff is also
trying to get by.
Very cyclical, right? Because like it was Star Wars at one time, it was sci-fi for a minute, and then it was horror stuff. Like every era has that thing, that genre that hits, and a bunch of traditional filmmakers and it's the same way with music, and it's any genre, right? A bunch of traditionalists have an issue with it because it's not what they do or did. And it's always that way. And it's going to be, after superhero films, it's going to be something else in 10 years. And it's going to be, well, that's not really cinema. I remember back in my day when they made Winter Soldier. Power. It's like, come on. Like,
all right. Yeah. So I guess it's just history rolling on the circle of life. All right. Let's move on.
That's nice.
When we come back, we're going to start deep diving into our topics, and we got a lot to talk about on the X-Men front, and we got to review Gemini Man. So, Gemini Man.
Yeah.
So, there you go. All right, stick with us. So, we're back, and as you guys know, we've been taking time throughout this whole thing to do House of X, but, I mean, we got a long discussion on that, and not everybody reads comics. So let's start with Chris Killian and Gemini Man, and kind of taking us through. They didn't hold screenings here in Nashville for press or anybody with a critical eye for this film.
Yeah.
So we have to go out and see Gemini Man over the weekend, but we wanted to get this one up before the weekend for everybody out there who might be, because I feel like this one's a good one where people might be on the fence. They're like, I love Will Smith. This has 2 Will Smiths. It's action. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. I've heard some things. So, Chris Killian, take us through. You didn't just see the movie. You were like out in Gemini Man land.
Yeah, I was at the red carpet and interviewed some of the actors for it, and it was it's not good. But you know, it's interesting because I didn't want to take the approach of just like after I watched the movie being like, this is not good. I don't know how to talk to these actors and filmmakers or whatever about the movie, and it's.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like, oh, it's not good. So
There's actually an opening scene in Joker that will really help you with that kind of thing. Like, it teaches you how to just like kind of smile through anything. Sometimes you have tears in your eyes. But yeah.
I'll say this right off the bat, that the CGI is incredible. I mean, the fact that they didn't de-age Will Smith and that's a completely digital character that they made from scratch is almost mind-blowing.
Whoa, I haven't seen this whole thing. So that's like, it's not just Will Smith and 2.
Yeah, that's so Will Smith filmed his actual scenes as the older version of Will Smith. Then they put him in a motion capture suit and he filmed the scenes as the younger Will Smith. And then they basically painted younger Will Smith over him. So it's insane. That's impressive.
So they showed it to you in the super high frame rate.
Gemini Man.
Yeah, I saw it in 60 FPS. Which was real weird because I'm not used to seeing movies like that. But I mean,
I'm still freaked out by the high.
It holds up. There were only 1 or 2 instances where I could really tell that it was CGI. So on that aspect, like as a technical achievement, it's very impressive. As a movie, nah, it's real bad. It just. You know, the script was written like in 1997, right? That's when it got sold. It feels like that. It feels like Face Off or something. It's like a 90s action movie for sure. It's got that feeling.
I love Face Off.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I mean, I don't automatically hate 90s throwback movies.
Like Con Air,
being,
Face
yeah,
Off,
for being
like all
like
those
B-movie cheese. Is this good on that level? Or is it like, I'm trying to qualify what kind of bad.
Like, does it embrace it or does it?
no.
Or does it think it's like really serious?
Well, I think that's the problem with Ang Lee directing it.
We're back to like Hulk stuff.
Yeah, I think that it could have been a really fun movie, and I think it's got aspects of it, but it's a little too serious, and I feel like there's a disconnect from what Ang Lee saw versus like what the material is. Because when I talked to Ang Lee about it, he was very much feeling like he was talking about on a thematic level of it being about facing down your younger self and all of these kind of interesting elements that really don't come across in the movie to me. So I just feel like there's a disconnect. And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that when Ang Lee did Hulk, and for him, Hulk was all about raging against your dad and like all this stuff, you know,
and wrestling your inner demon and that kind of thing. Yeah.
No, it wasn't, but like that was the thing. Like that would be like an obvious Hulk thing. Like he was like, no. And I just remember like Eric Bana's like spaced out interviews where he was just like talking about like trying to give Ang Lee and like the technicians like what he wanted. And he was just like trying to tell them that like every time Hulk freaked out, it had to be the expression of a rage of a youth built up over long times of missed family connection. And like people are just like, what? Like,
Right.
Yeah. So that can happen when Ang Lee tries to go to commercial genres.
Yeah,
sometimes.
he was getting a little too philosophical, I think, with what the material was demanding. So
So then you end up with like a YouTube spoof of a 90s action movie.
basically, yeah,
the action
that's a
good?
great way to. The action is great. There are some really good action in it. But the story's just all over the place and doesn't make a lot of sense. I felt bad for Benedict Wong. He shows up as a comic relief for like, I don't know, 10 minutes, and then I don't want to spoiler alert anybody, but it's
It's a
weird.
bit part.
Yeah, it's real. It's kind of strange. And Clive Owen, I don't know how much I enjoyed his villainous turn in it either. It's a little ham-fisted, and I don't know. I feel real torn about it because I really want to like it. But the more I think
Younger
about
self would love it. What, the current self.
Oh my
like-
God.
the more I think about it, though, I think the more I'm coming away with it thinking it's a missed opportunity.
All right.
Yeah.
So would you say sometimes I like to just qualify this for people. So would you say not in theaters, but rent it, not
For
rent
sure,
it
yeah,
on
yeah.
cable
I
one night?
think for sure if you can rent it or sneak into the theater, like then go for it. But I don't know that I would pay a movie ticket price. For
Matinee
Gemini
price?
Man. Maybe matinee. It's fun, and I think it's one of those things like everybody trashed Hellboy, the new Hellboy, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't. So I just assumed I was going to hate it, and then as these things are, I had a chance to watch it on an airplane, and with no expectation of it being good at all, and then I kind of enjoyed it. So I think if people lower their expectations for Gemini Man and then just kind of turn their brain off, they probably go in there and find something about it that they enjoy.
Is Will Smith enough? Because there's whole Will Smith fans that'll sit through like anything, like if it's Will Smithy enough.
Oh, it's total Will Smith. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's double Will Smith. So yeah,
All
all
right.
the Will Smith you want. And it is a little jarring to see like Fresh Prince version of Will Smith be so serious. I mean, he's very melancholy. He cries a lot, and it's just like that's another disconnect for me where I was like, this isn't that Will Smith.
He's supposed to be ragging on Carlton.
Oh, man, awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Chris Killian, and thank you for taking the bullet of going out on that red carpet and staring down that dark reality.
It was worth it just to get a selfie with Carlton.
Nice.
It really was.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I did.
Perks of the job. All right. So, moving right along, we are going to talk about the end of House of X and preview what Marvel has coming and the Dawn of X relaunch that is quickly approaching, where we will be reading a lot of X-Men comics and trying to piece this all together. Because as expected, Jonathan Hickman, the last chapter of this House of X storyline, Powers of X issue number 6, didn't just let us off easy. It had to let us off with a few more head screws before we got out of this whole thing. And Matt saw me. I looked like I had gotten sniped from outside and like, fell over in my chair, like slumped when I got to one particular point. So obviously we're going to talk spoilers of Powers of X number 6 and talk about what we're going to see in Dawn of X. All right, so Powers of X 6 kind of goes back through, and it's amazing how this story can like be so circular in some ways but still like so effective. I mean, it was teased that like these two intersecting books, like one was going to lay out story and the other would add new depth to that story. So Powers is the kind of expansive depth adding thing to House. And that turns out to be true because we just kept, and it's so, like, I'm so mad that I was so, like, cynical when Marvel put out that panel. It's like, this is the most important X-Men moment in history. And it was just Moira and Xavier's faces. And
Marvel said that? Marvel said this was the most important X-Men moment in history?
Yeah, right. That was a
there was
preview
one
for
panel.
House of X.
There
It
was
was just
one
one
panel at the
panel from House of X. That's Moira and Charles in intersecting panels of their faces as they're looking at each other in the middle of this fair, and he's like, and she says like, why don't you read my mind? And he like starts to read her mind, and that was just it. And it's like pastel colored panels.
Yeah.
Everybody was just like, what is this? And we were just ragging on it so hard.
Wow.
And it turned out to be true.
But, yeah, it turned out to be absolutely true. They earn that, and like not only that, but they repeat it throughout the story so many times, and even down to this last one. And basically we learn in this issue, for the spoiler kind of bullet points, is that the year 1000 timeline that we've all been wondering about with the librarian and the phalanx, like what is this all about? We find out that this is in fact Moira's sixth life. And we find out because we find out in this awesome scene where the librarian goes into this preserve that was mentioned in like the first issue, but we've totally forgotten about. There's this preserve that we thought was just like for humans in the old world, because they've never even defined what this world was. We were just here the whole time. And so we find out that the librarian is from this race called post-humans, who are this evolutionary offshoot of humans who are bioengineered and combined with technology, as opposed to like competing with their environment and technology. Yeah. They're genetically engineered to embrace both. And so they became this new race of things called post-humans or Homo novissimo or something like that. I forget the exact wording for it. But yeah. So this is what this future is with all these blue people and stuff, and this is what the librarian is. And so post-humans basically took over the world, eliminated machines, mutants, all that. Yeah. That whole thing we thought that future war with the man-machine-human war was all about. They're like, nah, real threat was us. We're here. Like, eliminated everybody, took over the world, built huge technological advancements like this world mind to attract the phalanx. And basically they're now at the end of like physical existence. They're like, well, we reached the end. We're like the most perfect thing. So what's next? We're going to become God and we're going to join the phalanx and everything material is going to be erased, but we're going to have our whole society and its intelligence added to this collective. And then we're going to go into this black hole and become basically God. And that's their whole, and be above space, time, and everything.
Oh, that's not confusing at all.
No, I mean, this is just the last chapter. This is the introduction of some people we've been sitting with the whole time, but don't know at all, apparently.
That they were good guys.
Yeah,
we thought they were the key to survival for mutantdom, and it turns out, oh no, they're
the new enemy. We've been watching the villain story unfold the whole time. Yeah. So, and we find this out because the librarian goes into preserve, and we find out there are 2 mutants left, Moira and Wolverine, who have had to survive together and keep each other alive for 1,000 years, like until they got to this point.
Yeah.
And the librarian finally kind of reveals their whole plan, who they are, the post-humans, like, and kind of like mocks them that mutants never really understood like what was happening with evolution and what the threat was, and could never saw them coming and all of that. And they're like, okay, word, we've been hanging on for 1,000 years to figure this very thing out. And Wolverine takes out Moira, and you learn this was her 6th life, which reframes everything that has happened in House of X, because now the whole thing the librarian tells them is if they achieve this godhood, they would be able to know even what Moira was doing, because they're God. They're outside of space and time in the known universe, and everything that she's doing is happening in this bubble that they would be able to observe and see, and they would come for her because they wouldn't let her challenge.
And that's why at one point he's like, oh, well, we're going to send you away.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to kill you, because
we know what happens.
If we kill you, you wipe it all out. Like, there was so much in that moment where I was just like, oh my God. And so the phalanx don't mean squat.
No.
They don't mean anything. We've been thinking
we've been scratching our head trying to be like, what in the blue hell are the phalanx involved in here? And it meant nothing.
Nothing.
Well, just the means for them to become this God-like enemy. Like, is through the phalanx. They're just a means to an end. That's it.
Like they went off to go live in some other Jonathan Hickman book somewhere. That just sounds like the premise and plot for some Jonathan Hickman creator-owned book. And
I just love that he didn't end up like this. There's so much to love about that, but the fact that he just didn't. He was like, I'm gonna do all this work. I'm gonna lay out because he laid out like what each level of phalanx and he did all that work, and he's like, it's not gonna be jack in the end, but like I'm gonna do it, and that's what it just
explains the mentality of these advanced beings, and what they're trying to do.
It's just absurd.
Like that's it.
But
like that's all it does.
To be fair, I don't think we're fully done with this. I think this.
I just love the devotion
This is just
to it,
and that's where we're going. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
So, like, we've just learned who the actual next enemy is for the X-Men, and possibly even the Marvel Universe as, like, a larger whole, we'll say. But, like, so Wolverine surprises the librarian in a great moment because librarian thinks he or she or what, I just call it is so superior that Wolverine just, like, takes it out, then kills Moira. And this reframes all of House of X, because we learn in this last issue, because then it takes us through, like, Krakoa and her secret space and her union with Magneto and Xavier. And then we get these journal entries of hers that basically reveal that Moira is almost like a bigger version of Sinister now in this X-Men universe. She's not bad, but she knows a lot more than she's let on. Yeah. And like, I'm going to write like something about the biggest questions left over from this that are going to feed into the Dawn of X thing. And one of the biggest ones is like, what exactly did she show Xavier?
Yeah.
Because the journals reveal that she didn't just open her mind, because her mutant power allows her, if she wants, to just never be detected. But she allows Xavier to see into her mind. But then we find out in the journals that she only showed him a picture that she wanted to show him.
To steer him, and same with Magneto, right? To steer them both into certain directions.
And she's working them like chess pieces. Because she's playing on a board where she's like the game master. Like she's the only one who really knows the bigger picture. And is playing on this game board where everything is very, butterfly effect dangerous. And so what she knows and like what her agenda is based on this stuff, especially that she learned in her 6th life.
Well, that's why I love how nervous she gets when the talk about bringing Destiny back, comes up, and she is just like,
we don't do that.
We can't do that.
Yeah, the one thing we figure out, there is one prejudice in the mutant island of Krakoa society. It's not all mutants. No precogs. All mutants come, no precogs. Which is a shady thing to say. Like, because Destiny's the one mutant who can detect what Moira's doing and like what her true agenda is, and Moira does not want that.
What if Moira ends up being the big bad villain?
I mean, in a sense, she could be.
They've painted enough gray in there that they can move her in very interesting ways.
Yeah.
She really does become like a Sinister, because
Yeah.
Sinister's the only other one on the board
Yeah.
that
Seems to
knows
maybe
things
knows
and it's
things that he shouldn't, or more than he lets on than he knows. And knows possibly about Moira and is playing a counter chess game to Moira's chess game.
Yeah.
And this hints that that's true because in her journals it says the Chimera thing comes back up, saying that he's now, because of what happened in her 9th life in the future war and developing these Chimera X-Men soldiers, that knowledge has somehow gotten to Sinister and he's developing Chimeras decades earlier than he was supposed to. And the first one is him combining different mutant powers into himself, which is like crazy too. So this book introduces a new enemy and it sets the stage for this to have way more intrigue in this whole, it's not going to be this, mutant ideal thing, this nation they've put together.
No, it sounds like it's already gone to hell.
Well, it's not, I mean, it's just, it's like they said in the House of X finale, it's a nation.
Yeah.
Like this is what happens when you have to start governing a nation. Things get really murky really quick.
Well, and I know some of the reactions to like the open-endedness of it because this book doesn't necessarily have this like, here's this giant spell it out for you ending.
Yeah.
And at least, but like to me, one of the biggest panels is when Moira and Charles are talking and they're talking about like what to reveal to like other people. Like what if they all find out that we always lose?
Yeah.
And it's the whole point of this book, right, was to like all the different eras, like Moira's entire life has been trying to find the path, trying to be that Doctor Strange, like all the.
Well, it felt a bit Infinity War, right? Where it's, Doctor Strange sees all the futures and, there's only the one where.
But
where
there's
they
none.
win.
There's like, so what, that's the most interesting part to me is that there's zero. They haven't found
that's
one
going to
yet.
be a real hopeful story of like minority empowerment and stuff. I was going to write this whole piece and then I got to this and I was like, well, that's.
And so that's what they're.
Like, you can have all these empowerment moments and all that, but ultimately, like.
We haven't found.
But then the other question is like, could Destiny actually be that key? Yeah, she's crazy pants, but like, could she be the key? Because now so much has changed and the course is theoretically in a different direction that if Destiny could see it, she would know.
Yeah. And this also, when you're guiding a nation, right, this presents a lot of interesting opportunities for leadership because yes, it's a council now, but one of the most interesting things was that issue where they went around the council just voting on Sabretooth, right? That's a glimpse of what the rest of this time will be. So you have people like Apocalypse, like Sinister, and if they find that out, which they will, I'm sure, then you're going to have people, well, I can be the one to figure that out. And you end up with this like West Wing X-Men book that I am totally down for. I can't wait for that.
And I think they talk about in this one about like what the council is and who sits where, because Moira's just pulling the strings and all of this. And she lives in a place in Krakoa where nobody knows she is. They think she's still dead.
Yeah.
Because they retcon that whole thing, like with the Golem and the Shi'ar Golem. So they faked her death.
Yeah.
And now she lives in this like little tumor sack on Krakoa. And nobody knows she's there. But I think what's interesting to me is how the elements of these lives aren't just throwaways. Like there's going to be things in these lives that come back up and affect what's happening in this one ultimately. Like I think one of the most interesting things is Moira's relationship with Apocalypse. Like in different people in general, like there seems to be this indication that like in several lives that she and Wolverine were close. Definitely in the 6th, like obviously they.
Well, he's killed her twice.
That's complicated.
Yeah.
But like her in Apocalypse in the journal entry about like Apocalypse being in this kind of nascent state still where she can't approach him yet, but like there's still that bond there.
That was great. Yeah.
Because they were basically like husband, wife, or just like in that 9th life and fought together and went through all this stuff together. So all of these relationships and stuff she still has a knowledge of and can affect things around us in the books. And I was wondering, a big thing I think I loved was possibly paving the way for a return to Onslaught or something like Onslaught when they talked about Charles Xavier's mind and how she's worried that what she's doing is pushing him too much and kind of doing it and pushing him over the edge and it could one day fracture his mind because we know what that happens and that was like, and I'm excited for all that.
My biggest issue with this ending is if I were a new reader coming into coming back to X-Men for this, I have zero idea of where to go next outside of maybe X-Men #1.
That's how I'm feeling.
There was nothing that set up the Marauders book. There was nothing that really set up X-Force. There was nothing that, set up the 16 other titles that are supposed to be here. And I originally thought, oh, okay, we're getting a Dawn of X one shot that maybe will be an anthology that sets all that up. And then I just learned, no, we're not getting that. It's just go into them. And
I think they're kind of leaving and I think that's why they focused on, like, when they did that Comic-Con panel, they, more than other ones that I've seen of like, oh, here's the next big thing, right? Where they'll go over a couple books. Here, they really took time to isolate each book, give it a spotlight, and go, here's what you can expect from it. And I think that's why they're doing it. I don't know why the choice was made, because I agree. I would have assumed they'd have a, like,
or just like vignettes or
compendium
something.
just, here's a small
I
story.
wouldn't. I mean, that's like, I'm pretty sure that would be like an anti-Hickman.
Well, no, but I'm saying
Hickman
that's
would
very
be like
Marvel tradition.
I know, but I think for Hickman, I'm pretty sure some of the dealings would be, I want to tell this one complete story.
But he's got a hand on the story of all the other books.
I know, but this is literally, I mean, he just set up a whole new world, and
Right.
now it's just they're letting people kind of come.
He
into
wants
the world.
people to look at them, look at the team, look at the premise, and go, does that sound interesting to me? I think that's how he's, because like during the panel, right, there was video of him, even though he wasn't there live, there was video of him breaking down what he finds most interesting about each one. And so even though he's not writing them, he still has a hand in that. I think they're taking a very organic approach to that. Yeah. Find the one that you like. Here's all the descriptions and just roll with it. And I mean, this week is X-Men. So it's not like, I mean, that is the flagship Hickman run book. So, I mean, a natural place to start would be the only book that's called just X-Men. So, I mean, I think he will set some things up in there.
And X-Men is like, I mean, he will. It was like the Avengers did, if you think like back in the late 90s or 2000s, where it was like rotating teams of Avengers. I think X-Men will be a launch pad for giving us a scope of this world from a much more kind of micro level, because House of X has had to cover a lot. Powers of X has had to cover even more. And it's like, now we can zoom in and like start to just, and X-Men will be the one, because they're just literally like breaking out teams and coordinating things.
Yeah. So, I think the other thing too is like I get that this was the end of the story, but there wasn't a thing at the end that truly got me excited to pick up X-Men #1. I don't know. There was nothing that really tells you where the story goes next from here, even for like the mainline X-Men, even for the mainline X-Men book. Like, this was a great, like, everything that he did with House and Powers was awesome and world building, but there was just nothing at the end of that said, oh, we're just getting started.
Well, I thought that's what, I mean, when Moira says that, I mean, I feel like that last part is that's the goal, is to find the one that we can continue this. We look at what we've built, right? Because there's a whole thing between them where they're like, look at what we built. You're trying to see the one we can work at, the one we can make work.
And also, I think Hickman's playing on a longer scale. Like, whatever happens, Dawn of X will move on and whatever. But like House of X will be its own storyline, and that's a graphic novel, cover to cover. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an awesome kind of complete X-Men story.
Now, I do feel like I agree with him as far as, I don't think it pushes you. I don't think it has a hook for X-Men, specifically that book.
No, this is. I mean, but that's my whole point. Like, this is going to be kind of, in a weird way, like a self-contained.
But I think it did hook me for other books in Dawn of X, like Marauders, especially, like coming out of this, and especially like the last issue of House. I don't know how you're not excited for Marauders, like not you specifically, like just people, like, because there's so much that team and that group of characters, same way with Excalibur, with Apocalypse and that group, like there are books that I came out of here going, I want to see that.
Oh yeah, like and there's a lot of books just looking at like the teams and from the covers and stuff that we've seen that I'm like, oh, I'm interested to see what Apocalypse is doing.
Well, let's talk about Dawn of X and go around and say, what are you most excited for? I guess I'll start. I'm kind of excited to see what Hickman does with this X-Men concept he's working with. The cover threw me when it was just the Summers family, but hearing that's going to be different teams assembled for different missions and kind of like almost like a weird Suicide Squad thing which you can be because they can be resurrected.
Yeah.
But like that's a whole kind of awesome
true.
concept.
Yeah.
And like I want to see how weird he gets with that and what that's like. So that's my curiosity. The other one I'm on a character level that I'm kind of excited for is Fallen Angels. Because I like those characters and I like what the title implies and the kind of murkiness of people who could trip out and really be kind of messed up and evil and what that means in like this new world order. So I'm kind of excited for those two.
I mean, with me, it's Marauders. I'm a sucker for pirate type stories, and some of the most interesting parts of House have been these Xavier and Magneto meetings dealing with like trying to build their nation, trying to build parts of their government, building the council. And this book with Emma and Sebastian Shaw and Kitty Pryde and like that team essentially like working all the politics and like the stuff between nations, all that's crazy interesting. And then you throw a pirate adventure with an interesting team, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sold. The one I came
first class flashes just back with White Queen Sebastian Shaw on a boat.
If that had been better, I do love First Class. Like I just really like that movie. But yeah, if those two had been better, I would have been amazed. The other one I came away, I was actually initially really excited for Fallen Angels and didn't care about like X-Force or some of the other ones like New Mutants and things like that. But I came out of the panel actually kind of excited for X-Force. I'm still excited for Fallen, but X-Force, the way he described it was essentially like it's split into intelligence and it's split into a fist. So like Wolverine heads up the fist, Beast heads up the intelligence. And the way we're doing is really more like this is the wet work side of the government. This is Krakoa has a special ops team just like you would the FBI and CIA. And we're really going to like delve into that as opposed to sometimes in the past, it's always been like, you know, we'll just send them on the stuff we don't want to do. Like that's interesting. But the way Hickman has built this, like the nation stuff and the government stuff that there's more opportunity to do interesting stuff with it. So, and plus X-23 is going to be in it. And that makes me happy.
Yeah, I forgot about X-Force. Yeah. I mean, that looks good too. I mean, art style of New Mutants, I'm really also the panels from New Mutants, the pages they've shown have me like really interested.
Boom, boom, baby.
Yeah, for just like how.
Well, but that's the one that Hickman's writing like the first 6 issues for, right? Or co-writing at least.
And then Breeson's taking over, I think, after that.
So I'm curious. I don't know a lot about this. Obviously, I haven't been keeping up. But is this X-Men? Is it contained within the X-Men, or is this going to have like a rippling, expansive effect on the whole Marvel universe?
Oh man, I'm actually going to write that story hopefully today. But like, yeah, I mean, this realigns everything in the Marvel universe.
It sounds
there's specific mentions of like other places in the Marvel universe, like when X-Men established their own sovereign nation, about how that the geopolitics of that play out. Like Wakanda's like one of the people who are like, nah, man, like we're not forming this treaty with you, like. So there's literally the Marvel universe is now mapped out of world that like accepts the terms of this mutant nation and the ones that reject it. And that's like what Marauders is about, like going to all the red areas of the map and like freeing mutants and doing and kind of affecting the politics there and why the strike force might be necessary and like all this stuff. So like, yeah, it's going to be having a rippling effect. And there's a storyline that's great in House of X about in the first issue where it gives you a preview of that when Cyclops has to have this kind of uncomfortable political negotiation with the Fantastic Four because they've caught Sabretooth, and he's like, oh, you know, we're just making this deal for mutants have amnesty now in the world of humans. So like humans can't arrest mutants or imprison mutants. They have to be turned over to Krakoa for mutant.
Matt's looking at me like, you want to read this now, don't
you do.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So like, yeah, I mean, so like they are like their own, instead of being an endangered species, they're now like, they're almost like Wakandans.
Right.
And they have their own kind of, you know, strict set of laws. And because they have valuable resources, they have these plants that they've sold to humanity that like cure Alzheimer's and extend life and can do other things that are like miraculous. And so they have they have an economy, they have a nation, they have like political, language, like political thing. They have ceremonies and almost like religion with their resurrection process. Like it's all this stuff. So like, yeah, everything's different now. Like when other characters encounter mutants and stuff, like, yeah, they might anger like the X-Men, Krakoa, Apocalypse, who's now part of this. Like it's all kind of thing. And just the whole fact that the X-Men have just granted amnesty to like every evil mutant who's now like a legal citizen of Krakoa is going to it's not going to sit well with possibly some other Marvel.
So do you think that if Moira ends up becoming this big bad villain, is it possible that she becomes a even worse villain within the Marvel universe?
Oh yeah, I mean, she's a universal threat. She's a mega level mutant in the sense that if she dies, the current universe as we know it, I mean, potentially is erased and starts over with her new lifetime.
Well, that's it. If Moira dies, like everything we've known about the X-Men system, presumably
could be wiped.
Yeah.
Because we're still in, because when
10th
Destiny
life.
said, right? Because we're still in her 10th.
And it's
Are we
uncertain if she has an
If she
11th.
has an 11th.
Right.
So there's that, like if
Which
she's
is only,
maxed
which
out.
again is something only she knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whether she's told them that is a whole other story. That this is the possibly last hurrah is like, we don't know. So
Craziness.
That's fascinating.
she might know that it's the end of the known universe, that we have no more chances, like in the Marvel universe. So there's a whole, she could be the big bad of a major Marvel crossover.
Yeah.
Nice.
It could be everybody literally hunting for Moira across
She could be
the
the new
universe.
Onslaught.
Oh, the new Onslaught. Yeah. It'd be crazy. But, all right. So that's it. Next week, new X-Men. Not to reference that and bring that whole thing back up. But the next wave of X-Men books launches. I'm sure we're all curious about how it plays out, if it has any effect on the future of the X-Men movies, anything like that. So stick with us, because when we come back for our next episode, we're going to be getting into this new era of X-Men plus a whole lot more. Oh, I mean, we took up all the time. We didn't talk about other new comics this week.
There was a lot.
It was very
It's fine.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good comics this week, and you can go to our website Comicbook.com and check out the reviews, because there were a ton. But
Yeah.
it's a finale of a big time event. I mean, what do you want?
So Matt will be back with all your comic breakdowns. We'll start that again next week. This was all about House of X. Thank you for tuning in. That'll do it for this episode of Comic Book Nation. If you are just new to the show, we put up new episodes every Wednesday, every Friday on Comicbook.com, where you can subscribe to our RSS feed and get regular updates on the show, or you can subscribe on your favorite listening platforms. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Google Playlist, iHeartRadio, or you can tell any Amazon Alexa device to play Comic Book Nation podcast, and it will fire right up for you. If you want to continue the discussion about anything we've talked about on this episode or any episode, you can always find us at the hashtag Comic Book Nation, or you can find me at Kofi Outlaw.
You can find me at Matt Aguilar CB.
At Chris Killian, but don't ask me comic book questions.
Please do ask him comic book
Ask him all the comic book questions.
Nope. Too late.
Oh, man. If you love the show, please go on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. We read reviews. We're getting, stretching out the word regularly here.
Oh, yeah. We haven't in a minute.
No, we haven't in a minute. But we try to keep up with it, and we're going to get back on our game on that soon. We've just had a lot to talk about. So be sure to leave us a 5-star review, because if we read your review on air, we will send you a Comic Book Nation t-shirt. That'll do it for this episode. As I said, we are out of here. Everybody enjoy. See you next episode. Peace.
Deuces.